So that's why I would like now to introduce a concept on which I have worked recently, and which seems to me to suggest a possible strategy in the eternal struggle between man and dispositors. This concept is profanation. 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 It's a juridical concept. It's a technical juridical concept. In Roman law, things or persons or places that in some way belonged to the gods were said to be sacred or religious. As such, they were removed from the free use of man. They could neither be sold or given power or usufruct. They were withdrawn from the usage. Any act that transgressed this special unavailability of the sacred object was sacrilegious. The verb to consecrate, sacrare, meant the exit of things from the sphere of human use and the separation in another sphere. Conversely, to profane and profanation meant to return these things to the free use of man. So the great Roman jurist Trebatius can write, we name profane something that was once sacred or religious, and it is now returned to the use and property of man. So that's to profane. Profanation means to give back something to the free use of man, to take it out from the separation. Because religion, right, a good definition for religion is a dispositive that will remove things, places, animals, or people from common use and transfer them to a separate sphere, called the sacred. So the apparatus that affects this is sacrifice, as you know. So the sacrifice is the set of acts and rules who will regulate the transition from something, from the profane sphere to the sacred, and conversely, the transition from the sacred to the profane. And sometimes the profanation can be very, on the Roman sacrifice can be very, very simple. For instance, during the sacrifice, the victim was offered, killed, the animal was killed and offered. The god only ate the interiors. They don't like beef steaks. Only the interiors, heart, liver, etc., etc. The rest, the whole was consecrated. But once the interior were separated, the rest were profanated simply by touching them. Contagione. So then everyone could eat them. No? After the sacrifice, everyone could eat, because they now were profane. So another example, more interesting perhaps, of profanation, so of the passage from the sacred to the profane, can happen in a very curious, incongruous use of the sacred. I mean the play. You know perhaps that most of the games with which we are familiar derive from ancient religious ceremonies, from divinatory practices, from rituals that once belonged to the sacred sphere. So all the play children play, for instance, Ring Around the Rosy, the round dance of the children, was originally a marriage rite. All the games with the ball reproduced, according to the folklorists, that's not me that's speaking here, according to the folklorists, reproduced the struggle of the gods for the possession of the sun. all the games of chance and gambling derive from divinatory and oracular practice. So the spinning top and the chessboard, for instance, were instruments for divination, as you know. So, an interesting play is a very interesting example of profanation. Something who was religious is now returned to a new and different use, which we call play, but it is a different use, free use of man. And the children, that's beautiful, the children are mostly the people in charge of this massive profanation of all the lost religious ceremonies. But children can play not only, as you know, with the religious things, but also with things which come from the sphere of economy, of law, of war. Children play with whatever comes from other separated sphere, but they take it back to another use. That's a very beautiful and important example of profanation, because we have there a new dimension of use, the invention of a new dimension of use, which children and philosophers perhaps give to humanity. Because I think that it is a sort of use like this that Benjamin must have had in mind when, in his essay on Kafka, he writes that the law, that it is no longer applied, but only studied, is the gate to justice. So he's evoking a figure where humanity plays with the law, does not apply it anymore. And this new usage is called study. That's a Jewish invention, that's Talmud, means to study, as you know. So, just as the religion that is no longer observed but played with opens the gate to use for children, so the powers of economics, law and politics, deactivated in that way, become the gate to a new happiness. Now, following Benjamin's, wrote a very an incredible little text which was published posthumous called Capitalism as a Religion. I will not enter in this text, a very interesting text that Werner Hamaker has analyzed. I would just follow his suggestion, and we could say that capitalism, in its present stage, pushes to the extreme and generalizes the tendency to separation that was already present in religion. Where sacrifice once marked the passage from the profane to the sacred and vice versa, there now stands a single, multiform, ceaseless process of separation that assails everything, every place, every person, every human activity in order to divide it from itself. In its extreme form, the capitalist religion realizes the pure form of separation without anything left to separate. An absolute profanation without remainder now coincides with an equally vacuous and total consecration. Everything is done, produced or lived, even the human body, even of course sexuality, even language, is now divided from itself and dislocated into a separate sphere that no longer defines any substantial division, sacred and profane, but in which all use becomes impossible.